what's going on with the AAA game industry? So let's talk about it. I've already made a couple videos on Skull and Bones and Suicide Squad. And okay, Skull and Bones, it was technically a quadruple A game, which is just a fancy way of saying that they spent a lot of money and they lost a lot of money. But this has been a trend in gaming, if you haven't noticed, is that a lot of these AAA games, they're coming out, they're putting a ton of money into it, which is what AAA games means. We've all kind of assumed this, but if you actually look it up, it's due to like a mid to major level. Essentially, AAA means they have a bunch of money that they've put into the game. Double A, less money. Single A, I don't even know if I'd qualify as single A as a indie game dev. I'd be in the, I don't even know what category I'd be in. It doesn't matter. I've written down a few different things. I don't ever script these videos. I'm just kind of yapping for 10 minutes, but I wrote down a few things, just some kind of, bold point reasons why I think that AAA games are on a decline. There is, of course, the exceptions. When I was doing some research for this video, I found a forum and there was someone who had pointed out that, there has been some of the three of the top four that he referenced. Two of them were Spider-Man games, and one of them was a God of War game. I mean, God of War, one of the most iconic franchises of all time. It's almost impossible to make a bad God of War game, and that fan base is so deep that they would almost support anything borderline a just travesty of a story, which, the successor to that God of War wasn't quite as you know respected, I'd say, but it was a good follow up. But God of War is always going to do good numbers. And then Spider-Man, even the storyline in Spider-Man, either one, you couldn't. If you like playing Spider-Man, it's because Spider-Man is the greatest designed superhero of all time. Flying around from building to building, shooting webs is almost impossible to ruin. And like I could literally just play an entire game of just doing that, slinging webs. If you played the old Spider-Man games, like it was on the most basic graphics ever, but when you were able to like actually be Spider-Man, it's by far, if you're just talking about playable characters, Batman would be a close second probably. Spider-Man is probably the funnest superhero to play as, so it's almost impossible to ruin a Spider-Man game. So I don't really take those as like, oh, this is proof that AAA games are still successful. And plus, most of the games that this guy even referenced they weren't recent. So Suicide Squad, Skull and Bones, those are just the most recent examples. There's a long list, and I am considering Skull and Bones AAA just for reference. I'm not considering any of these games quadruple A until maybe GTA comes out. But even that, I don't think we should be even adding a quadruple A category. It just makes no sense. So the next reason I have written down is AI. So obviously AI is going to affect aspects of the gaming industry. I made a video about Sora, like literally my first commentary video a couple weeks ago was about Sora. And I have mixed feelings on AI. It's definitely going to cut some jobs. There's going to be, once these big companies learn how to really use AI in a way, because AI right now, it's not able to make games. It can give you some cool graphical art. It can give you very good templates. It can give you, very realistic pictures, but it's, other than making backgrounds and like characters, it's not able to fine tune things that 3D artists, 2D artists are needed for. So they're going to maybe lose some jobs to AI in that regard, which I did talk about is the graphical assets people are going to be the most affected by AI, at least in our, next decade. Then the next thing is indie devs. So we're constantly seeing games. I wouldn't even call some of these companies indie devs. Like the people who made Helldivers 2, I talked about it in my Game Dev Reacts. They have a company of 100 people, so That's not an indie dev. That's a pretty deep team, but it is kind of all in the same category. They consider anyone who's not AAA. If you're a consumer, you just kind of throw them all in the indie game dev. I would be considered like a true indie game dev. It's someone who works completely alone. For now, I'm obviously going to expand. But for my first project, I just kind of wanted to do it completely alone, release the game on Steam, learn how to do every single thing necessary. Which, by the way, I was waiting. I was waiting for this moment. You guys can go get Elf Kicker on free for Steam, or for free on Steam. The next thing I wrote down was Out of Touch, so it kind of goes along with the storyline. Just the people at the top, they are very out of touch with what gamers want in this. We just want fun games. We don't necessarily want, super hyper realistic graphics in the right games. If it's an outer space game, if it's certain types of games, sure. But if I'm like, I'd rather play a 2D game that's, really fun opposed to one of these insane $70 AAA games that is just the storyline's trash. There's another reason I'm about to talk about. There's another live aspect that is just kind of pointless if you're, not willing to spend $500 on a single game. And that leads into the final two reasons why AAA games are failing. These are arguably the two most major reasons, and that's that these companies are way too concerned with the profits, which they have to be. I will just say that. And the live service aspect. So when you become a AAA gaming studio, um, if you guys have ever seen The Social Network, when you start introducing these third-party investors, it goes from a student project, something fun, something on the way up, to a business very quickly, where people are going to rely on you to keep innovating, to keep making money. When if you're just in indie game dev, if you're a small team, then making a few $100,000 is life changing. But for these billion-dollar companies, for a game like Suicide Squad that was such a colossal failure, there are people in those companies that are being fired, have been fired, or they just don't care about money. They're just setting money on fire, and they have so much money to burn that it doesn't affect their bottom line. But either way, they're losing a ton of money, and that's because their entire basis is based off making money. And that goes to the out of touch. This all relates together. All these points I've made, they are a combination of things. It's not just one thing. It's multiple hits to these AAA gaming studios, and as a whole, that's making it fall. So when you are so concerned with profits, gamers aren't dumb. Gamers are arguably the smartest consumers out of every consumer, just because of how long people have been gaming. Gaming's not something you pick up and put down. It's something that you do probably for your entire life. I've been playing games since I was 4 years old, and I don't play as many games now, but I'll always love competitive gaming. Competitive gaming is just something that it replaced that need for, if you stop playing sports. A lot of gamers were into sports. I know a lot of people view gamers in a certain light, but pretty much everybody has gotten into gaming from all aspects of life. And a lot of former athletes, people are into competitive gaming, and they see what these companies have done. And the live service aspect is the final kind of thing that it turns people off so much from these companies when they say that we're going to essentially release an incomplete game. And for these AAA games especially, which this video is about, when they do that, it's so sickening to hear, because they have such a deep team, so much money. If you gave me, I've said this many times, if you gave me even half of the money, half of the assets, half of the team it's not just me, any indie game dev, there's a lot of indie game devs that are way more experienced, way better than I am. If you gave them these same assets, they would make a game that's so much better. So it sucks to see, because again, it's all tied together. The people at the top, the investors, the for-profit Like, obviously, every game should be for profit. The AI, you add all these things in together, we're seeing a sharp decline in AAA gaming, and we're going to see a consistent rise in indie game devs. I'm not saying every major game's gonna fail, because, like I said, you get the Spider-Mans, you get the Gods of War. Grand Theft Auto is going to be a massive success. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going, like I've said many times, Rockstar is the one company that I feel like you can count on until we see GTA 6. I think the storyline's going to be kind of mid, but I think they're going to go crazy with the online. But then again, the live that's in a live service aspect that GTA 5 kind of created. So just to argue both sides, it's like GTA 5 almost created that beast. But with Red Dead 2, they kind of, I don't know, if I better not hear anyone criticizing Red Dead 2, because that was one of the most anticipated games of all time, and they just went above and beyond. Like the small details in that game, the developers should get a lifetime achievement award for, because you're seeing people discover stuff in Red Dead 2 that's just like, that hasn't even been seen before, and the game's been out for how long? There'll be like videos of people, getting weird interactables, or just, I'm going way off track here, but that's it. AAA games is going down, and I'm not even that sad about it. I hope these companies that I like, though, there is a lot of AAA gaming companies that I like. I hope they find their footing again, or they just be like, we're making mistakes and we need to get back to our roots. So that's it. Goodbye.